Reading. It's that thing we used to do before we grew into more productive habits. See, most people read every day, but it's usually in the form of Instagram posts, YouTube comments, news articles, or the nutrition information on food packages. However, it seems that reading books, novels, stories, the classic form of reading, is not as common as it used to be. I remember on my last trip to Toronto, I visited a secondhand bookstore. I was at the cash register with 4 books in my hand, when an elderly man said to me, "I'm glad to see a young person still reading these days." Little did he know, the books were for my friends. I know people still read, but there are many that don't, or used to read but fell out of the habit, like me. So, last year, with this in mind, I decided to challenge myself a little bit. I told myself I'd read 2 books a month for a year. For me, it wasn't really about the numbers. I know there are a lot of people who read 1 book a week or a book a day even. But for me, I wanted to increase how much I was reading in general. I just wanted to get back into the habit. Reading is an excellent way of learning new things, gaining knowledge, gaining new perspectives, getting lost in fantasy. So in this video, I'm going to briefly go over each book I read. These aren't really going to be full-fledged reviews, more like overviews of what I thought about them. Afterwards, I'll share the 5 things that I learned or internalized this year. The Daily Stoic. I bought this after seeing another YouTuber reading it. The book offers daily pieces of wisdom, knowledge, and ideas from the philosophy of Stoicism, which emphasizes the importance of accepting reality and focusing on the things in your life that are within your control, as opposed to the things that are out of your control. It appealed to me because Stoicism resonates with me, and I felt like a little bit of wisdom each day would help me to grow. Over the year, I usually read 1 page per day, as this is how the book is intended to be used. That said, I often missed multiple days in a row and just read them all together the next time I opened the book. I found the book to be a somewhat helpful tool for grounding myself and remembering to rely on my reasoned mind, as opposed to being dictated by my petty emotions. However, I think I would have gotten more out of the book if I would have been more dedicated to reading a page per day, and maybe even going over it again in the evening. 10% happier. I saw this on the reading lists of some YouTubers. It's about how Dan Harris, a newscaster for ABC News, got into meditation after having a panic attack on live television. I had already gotten into meditation earlier that year, and so naturally I was interested in reading about a skeptic discover the many benefits of meditation. I enjoyed learning about the journey that Dan Harris went through, but mostly I liked the discussions and pieces of advice he would receive from various figures, including Eckhart Tolle and Sam Harris. I remember at one point feeling that something they said resonated with me on such a profound level that I felt a really strong feeling of contentment, of peace. It faded pretty quickly, but I still appreciated the moment and the ideas that the book discussed. Goodbye things. A friend lent this to me, knowing I was getting into minimalism. The book is pretty short and to the point. The author talks about his journey into minimalism, providing many useful tips for living a more clutter-free life. I remember my girlfriend rolling her eyes as I would throw out many of my possessions, telling her we should get rid of our microwave, the thing she uses to make pizza. I believe I slept alone that night. I like the book, but if you're interested in minimalism, you could also benefit from just watching some YouTube videos or reading up on it online. Digital minimalism. Following the minimalism trend, I picked this book up in the hopes of reducing screen time. I don't use social media that often, but I feel like I could decrease the time I spend watching YouTube and Netflix. The book talks about how to live a more focused life in an age where technology use is ubiquitous. I appreciated the advice the author gave, specifically having a designated day for screen time. I also love the idea of getting more comfortable with solitude, just taking some time to yourself and getting rid of all the external noise from technology, media, and communication with others. I imagine one day spending a weekend by myself in a cottage in Finland, just swimming, picking berries, meditating, and going on long walks. The Flinch. Opting for a short book, or more like a long blog post that you can find online, this one was an easy one. The book talks about facing your fears and stepping out of your comfort zone. This is something I was really focusing on last year, hence why I began the challenge. A lot of the ideas in the book made me think of moments in my life where I could be more courageous, a little more bold. If you feel like you need inspiration for seeking discomfort, this could help you a little. Homo Deus. I remember asking my philosophy teacher what he thought of this. His exact words were, "What a load of bull." Having began reading Sapiens before this, I was excited to see what all the hype was about. Yuval Noah Harari tries to answer the question of what's next for the human race, now that war, starvation, and other global issues are no longer as prevalent as they once were. In other words, other problems have arisen and new technology is constantly being developed. As humanity evolves and new goals are set, ideologies change, Where will we be many years from now? Essentialism. Essentially, I don't remember the book too well. But I do remember the main idea. Make your highest contribution to the things that truly matter to you. Narrow in on the commitments in your life that bring you the most joy and fulfillment, and weed out everything else. Why we sleep. Weirdly enough, I began reading this book in February when I was flying from Amsterdam to Toronto. Safe to say, I fell asleep multiple times. It was both enlightening and a little scary to read into so much depth about the benefits of proper sleep and the detriments of poor sleep. The Obstacle is the Way. Another book by Ryan Holiday. This one also explores Stoicism and how the adversities that we face are ultimately what allow us to progress. I won't say much on this one since the premise is pretty simple and it puts forth a lot of the same ideas as the Daily Stoic, but I liked reading this, mostly because I would stretch whilst listening to it. The Willpower Instinct. This book explores willpower and provides scientific studies to help you build healthy habits, stick to long-term goals, and gain more self-control. The book actually came at a perfect time since the positive habits that I'd built over the year were starting to break down during the lockdown. I noticed I was exercising less, eating less healthy, and watching more series. By the way, One Tree Hill, excellent show, absolute classic. Gaining a better understanding of the brain, of willpower, habits, and self-control all helped me to build these habits up again and overall improve my mindset despite the situation. Sapiens. Oh lorsh, this one was an ordeal. Not because it was bad, it's just that the audible narration was a little dull. By the time I'd finished the book, I'd literally grown up, had kids, had a midlife crisis, bounced back, had a revelation, and spent my last years as a goat farmer in Sicily. That's just my opinion, of course, and other than that, it was great. Getting such a detailed yet concise look into the history of mankind was refreshing. Can't Hurt Me. I could make a whole video about this book, that's how much it resonated with me. It's hard to even put into words what I think about this book, but it's a game changer. David Goggins takes you on a huge journey, giving you an in-depth look at the times and moments in his life where he struggles, where he overcomes these struggles. He analyzes all these moments and how they affected him, and criticizes his psyche throughout each ordeal, and explains how he progresses and grows into the man of iron he is today. I listened to the audiobook as I would run in parks and through forests, and it pushed me and inspired me so much that I was running almost every day for 2 weeks. This book is incredible, and I recommend it to everyone. The Power of Now. I had heard about this book back in 2015 and even listened to a bit of it. Picking it up again a few months ago, it took me a while to get through because of how deep and sometimes esoteric it was. The message behind it, though, is one that I believe I will remember for a long time. Happiness can only come in the present moment. 1984. I finally read this classic and it was an experience. Orwell paints a grim picture of society in an alternate version of the world, and it's one that no one would want to live in. Reading this on a train, I felt lost in the world Orwell created. This one's a must for fans of fiction. The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up. Last but not least, this one I'd known about for a long time and finally got around to it. It felt like a nice wrap up to all the knowledge and ideas I'd been exploring for the past year and a half. Saying no, not trying, being comfortable with being different. These are all things the book highlights. So, what did I learn from this year and from all those books? 1. We need struggle. Life is suffering, as the Buddha said. This isn't the grim message it sounds like at first. See, we all suffer. 1 month we'll suffer more frequently, and the next might be easier. Some pain is stronger than other pain. From what I read this year, from all the knowledge I've gathered until now, and based on my own experience and beliefs, we need pain. We need to struggle. I'm not saying it's fun, and I'm not minimizing any of the tragedies that people go through. What I'm saying is, if we can get past the struggle, if we can see our adversities as springboards to progress, as necessary obstacles we must overcome in order to grow, then we've already won. In addition, we can try our best to choose our pain. In other words, we can choose what we believe is worth struggling for. Often when people say, I want to be a famous actor, they only picture the end result, the glory. They don't picture all the struggling, all the minimum wage jobs, all the failed auditions, all the hits to the ego. People often say they want something, but fail to want everything that comes with it. Find the thing that you believe is worth struggling for. Care about the dreams where you appreciate the hardship because you know it's part of the journey. 2. Surround yourself with people you admire. We've all heard versions of this. It's obvious that we should be around people that we like, that inspire us. I don't mean you have to fight to get yourself into the cool group or the people who have accomplished the most. What I mean is, surround yourself with people with similar values to you. Maybe people with values you want to have or are doing the kinds of things that you see yourself doing one day. Be around people who push you to grow. Now, it's important to note that with admiration, I don't mean envy. Although, if a friend or family member accomplishes something great, it's okay to feel a little bit of envy, as long as that envy is a catalyst for something much more meaningful, a more empowering feeling: drive. Maybe that little bit of envy will actually inspire you to progress in some area of your life. All of my close friends and loved ones have qualities that I admire, whether it's honesty, ambition, compassion, or the ability to love wholly, unconditionally. The people around me are one of my main sources of inspiration and resilience. Surround yourself with virtue, with integrity, and watch as these reflect the virtue and integrity you have in yourself. 3. Failing is an opportunity and an adventure. The first lesson I learned was about accepting suffering, general pain and struggle during one's lifetime. This one's about embracing failure. As I mentioned earlier in the video, a lot of my healthy habits started to degrade during the lockdown. By the time it was over, I felt lethargic, unmotivated, and even kind of out of shape physically. At that point, I kind of kicked myself for failing, for regressing, and now having to complete the chore of building everything back up again. And yet, as I started to get back into my old habits and improve my mindset and my fitness, I loved it. I loved it since the beginning, months before I was where I wanted to be. In a sense, I accepted the present. I accepted the failure and got locked into the journey ahead, embracing the opportunity to grow. Your failures are life lessons, and they give you a free trip, a hands-on, personally tailored adventure that only you can go on. 4. Find a hobby that you can get lost in. As a kid and all the way up into my teens, I was really into gymnastics and free running. Every trick I learned, every obstacle I'd flip off or climb over, I felt like I was overcoming a mental wall. I also used to play basketball in high school, spending hours on end at the local court. Whichever sport it was, I would get into a certain rhythm, a zone where all my problems disappeared. And this is why hobbies are so important. They put you in a state of flow. The times you're so focused on an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The moments where you're completely engaged in something and the mind finally shuts up. The moments where you're in the present, where what you did or will do, who you are or will be, these are irrelevant. You only have the now. Your hobbies also provide you with small-scale examples of pushing past barriers, of making progress, and of failing over and over again and then having the boldness to try again. How you handle your failures and wins in your hobbies and passions reflect how you handle your failures and wins in life. 5. Remember to be present. Every now and then, as I'm running through a forest or watching my friends tell stupid jokes,
The head of my razor broke, which means I have no clue how I'm going to shave my neck beard. And it's getting excessive.
or admiring the beauty of my girlfriend as she laughs at my stupid jokes, I'll ponder over the sheer absurdity that I'm alive. I'll even imagine myself in the future looking back at this moment, the present moment where I'm running, where I'm seeing my friends and my girlfriend and my family and my home. I'll be like, I should have stayed there longer. I should have really stayed in that moment for a second longer. So, some final remarks. This year was pretty interesting. Aside from reading these books and learning all these things about humans, about history, about life, the year was full of highs and lows. Big events that made massive short-term impacts on my life, and small, subtle moments that may have actually had even stronger effects on me. I'm glad that I started this challenge. I'm going to continue reading more now that I have the drive. But I won't have a certain number of books in mind to read every month. I'm just going to go with the flow and read whenever I please. After all, it's not about worrying about the trivial details. It's about focusing on the essential and remembering to be present.
There's a planet in your eyes. Did you know that you are really just the universe disguised as something beautiful? Disguised as something beautiful. There's an ocean in your chest. Feel it flowing and it's not identical to all the rest. It's in your head sometimes. It's all in your head.
Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed making it. This has been a long year and I never actually thought that I'd make a video about this. It was just a goal that I had in mind, and about a week or two ago I thought it'd be cool to make a video about it. Oh, and a lot of you guys probably noticed that I didn't include all the books. I did read 24 books this year, but I chose to talk about the ones that impacted me the most. So, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.
All right, you guys ready to go?